Captain Ju Park stood frozen on the bridge of the research vessel Horizon, her eyes fixed on the tactical display. The holographic projection showed Europa Station, humanity's pride and most advanced outpost in the solar system, breaking apart under relentless alien fire. Bright flashes of light marked each impact as strange. Angular ships methodically reduced the station to floating debris. Station integrity at 12%, reported Senior Officer Daho Ryu, his voice barely a whisper. Life signs dropping rapidly. Juwoo's fingers dug into the padding of her command chair. Just 8 hours ago, she had been sharing coffee with Station Commander Neri at Europa's observation deck, watching Jupiter's swirling storms. Now Neri was certainly dead, along with over 4,000 scientists, engineers, and their families. The Horizon shuddered violently as a piece of debris collided with their shields. Shield status, Juwoo demanded, snapping out of her shock. Holding at 63%. Lieutenant Taho Kim replied from the navigation console, his young face pale with fear, but his hand steady. Captain, unknown vessels are changing course. 3 are now heading toward our position. Juwoo took a deep breath. The Horizon wasn't a military vessel. It was a science ship designed for deep space exploration and first contact scenarios. The irony wasn't lost on her. They had spent years searching for intelligent life beyond Earth, and now that life had found them instead, with weapons blazing and no attempt at communication. All hands, battle stations, she ordered through the ship-wide comm. Evasive maneuvers, Lieutenant Kim. We need to put distance between us and those ships. Yes, Captain. The Horizon banked hard, its engine straining as Taho pushed the ship to its limits. Through the viewports, Juwoo could see Europa's icy surface reflecting the explosions happening in orbit above it. Communications Officer Song. Send emergency transmission to Earth Command. Include all sensor data we've gathered on the attacking vessels. Myung Song's fingers were already flying across her console. Transmitting on all emergency channels, Captain. But there's heavy interference. I can't confirm receipt. Another violent shake rocked the bridge as a direct hit struck their aft section. Shields at 41%, exclaimed Taho. Direct hit to Engine Bay 2. Chief Engineer Junho Lee's voice crackled over the comm. Captain, we've lost Engine 2. Coolant leak contained, but we're down to 70% thrust capacity. On the tactical display, the 3 alien ships were gaining quickly. Their design was unlike anything humans had ever encountered. Asymmetrical formations of interconnected dark metal that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. They'll overtake us in 6 minutes at current speed, stated Daho, his tone grim. Juwoo looked around at her crew, 26 of Earth's brightest scientists and explorers, now possibly the only survivors from Europa Station. Her mission had been to study Jupiter's moons and search for microbial life. Nothing had prepared her for this. Science Officer Min, what have we got on these attackers? Dr. Jun Min looked up from his analysis station, his eyes wide. Energy signatures unlike anything in our database, Captain. Their weapons seem to be some form of directed plasma, but much more focused than our technology can achieve. Their hulls absorb our scanning beams, suggesting advanced stealth materials. He paused. Wait, I'm detecting unusual radiation from their propulsion systems. It matches theoretical models for faster-than-light travel. Juwoo's heart skipped a beat. Humanity had only achieved FTL travel 3 years ago. If these aliens had the same technology. Lieutenant Kim, prepare the FTL drive. Taho looked back in surprise. Captain, we're still well within Jupiter's gravity well. FTL protocols recommend. I know what the protocols say, Lieutenant, but those ships will catch us before we can reach safe distance. Prepare the drive. As Taho reluctantly began the FTL startup sequence, Juwoo turned to her communications officer again. Officer Song, any contact from Mars colony? They should have detected these attackers. Myung's face paled as she adjusted her headset. Captain, I'm picking up emergency broadcasts from Mars. They're under attack as well. Multiple hostile ships in orbit, planetary defenses overwhelmed. A stunned silence fell over the bridge. Mars colony held over 2 million people. The tactical display updated, showing new information as the Horizon's sensors gathered more data. The alien vessels were transmitting between themselves using an unknown language or code. Dr. Min's station automatically began recording and analyzing the transmissions. Picking up a new signal, Mayung suddenly announced, It's Earth, Captain. They're reporting unknown ships appearing near Luna Base. It's a coordinated attack across the entire solar system. The reality of their situation crashed down on Juwu like a physical weight. This wasn't a misunderstanding or an isolated incident. This was a systematic assault on human civilization. FTL drive charged to 80%, Tahoe reported. But Captain, jumping this close to Jupiter could tear the ship apart. Juwu watched as the alien vessels closed in, their weapon systems powering up according to the sensor readings. We have no choice, she decided. We need to warn Earth with everything we've learned. Set course directly for Earth. That's against all safety protocols, Tahoe protested. This is no time for protocols, Lieutenant. Execute the jump. As Tahoe programmed the coordinates, Dr. Min called out, Captain, I've managed to decode part of their transmissions. They're calling themselves the Krelax. And they're discussing extermination protocols. Another hit rocked the ship, harder this time. Shields at 23%. We can't take another hit like that, Daho warned. FTL ready, Captain, Tahoe announced, his voice shaking slightly. But at this distance from Jupiter. Do it, Juwu ordered, her voice leaving no room for argument. Tahoe took a deep breath. FTL engaged in 3, 2, 1. The stars outside the viewports stretched into lines as the horizon leaped into faster-than-light travel. The ship groaned and shuddered violently, structural integrity alarms blaring across every deck. For several terrifying seconds, it seemed the ship would tear itself apart. Gradually, the shaking subsided. The horizon had survived the jump. Damage report. Juwu called out, releasing her white-knuckled grip on her chair. Hull breaches on decks 3 and 4, sealed by emergency systems, reported Shunho from engineering. FTL drives strained but functional. We're lucky to be alive, Captain. Juwu didn't feel lucky. She felt sick with grief and anger. Turning to Dr. Min, she asked, what else did you learn from their transmissions before we jumped? Min looked up from his console. Not much, but enough to understand their motives. The Krelax see us as a threat, not for what we are now, but for what we might become. They've been watching us since we achieved FTL capability. They decided we were developing too quickly. So they attacked without warning, Juwu said quietly, without any attempt at diplomatic contact. Yes, it appears to be their standard protocol for dealing with emerging spacefaring species. Juwu turned back to the main view screen, now showing only the streaking lights of FTL travel. Somewhere ahead lay Earth, still unaware of the full scale of what was happening, still unprepared for what was coming. Officer Song, prepare all our data for immediate transmission once we exit FTL, she ordered. Everything we've recorded about their ships, weapons, and communications. Yes, Captain. Juwu stood and faced her crew. Their faces showed fear, shock, and grief, but also determination. We may be the only ship to escape Europa with this information, she told them. What we've learned could be crucial for Earth's defense. The Krelax struck first, without warning or mercy, but they'll soon discover that humanity isn't so easily exterminated. As the horizon raced toward Earth, carrying its precious cargo of data and survivors, Mars colony burned behind them, and the Krelax fleet prepared for their next target. Dr. Minho adjusted his glasses as he studied the three-dimensional holographic projection floating above the conference table. The room was deep underground in what had been a nuclear bunker during the Cold War, now repurposed as Earth Defense Command's primary strategic center. 20 of Earth's highest-ranking military, scientific, and political leaders sat around the table, their faces illuminated by the blue glow of the hologram, showing the Krelax attack patterns. They're methodical, Dr. Lee said, gesturing to the display with a laser pointer. Each attack follows the same pattern. First, they target communication arrays. then power generators, then defense systems, finally, civilian centers. No communication attempts, no prisoners. The hologram showed the same sequence playing out across Mars Colony, Europa Station, Titan Base, and 5 other human outposts. In each case, the time between the first appearance of Krelak ships and complete destruction was less than 6 hours. General Hyun Kang, the newly appointed Supreme Commander of Earth's Unified Defense Forces, scowled as he studied the data. His weathered face betrayed no fear, only calculation. Why? He asked bluntly. What do they want? Preemptive elimination, said Captain Ju Park. She had been promoted after bringing the Horizon back to Earth with its crucial intelligence. She pointed to a separate display showing the partially decoded Krelak's transmissions. They see our potential. They fear what we might become. The meeting room fell silent as the implications sank in. Earth's remaining colonies had gone dark one by one over the past 3 weeks. Now, long-range sensors had detected a massive Krelak's fleet approaching Earth. Arrival estimated in less than 48 hours. Captain Park, said President Sunwoo, her voice steady despite the dark circles under her eyes. You've had more direct experience with these aliens than anyone else in this room. What are we facing? Ju stood and took control of the holographic display. The image shifted to show detailed scans of the Krelak's vessels captured by the Horizon. Their technology is approximately 70 years ahead of ours, she explained. Their weapons are plasma-based, capable of piercing our strongest shields. Their hulls absorb most scanning technology, making them difficult to track. But they're not invincible. She zoomed in on a particular section of one of the alien ships. Dr. Lee's team discovered this while analyzing our sensor data. Their ships have a vulnerability near their propulsion systems. A concentrated attack here, she highlighted a junction point, could potentially disable their engines. Dr. Lee stood up beside her. We've also made progress understanding their biology from tissue samples recovered from debris near Europa. He pulled up a new hologram showing microscopic structures. The Krelaks appear to be silicon-based life forms, not carbon-based like humans. They require different atmospheric conditions and temperatures than we do. How does that help us? Asked General Kang. It explains their behavior, Dr. Lee continued. Silicon-based life evolves much slower than carbon-based life. The Krelak civilization is likely millions of years old, but changes very slowly. Our rapid technological development, from radio to interstellar travel in less than 200 years, would seem unnatural and threatening to them. So they decided to wipe us out before we could challenge them, said Defense Minister Jia-yun, her voice tight with anger. Yes, Dr. Lee confirmed, but their biology also gives us potential advantages. Their neural systems operate differently from ours. They process information more thoroughly but much slower. They may have difficulty adapting to rapid changes in battle conditions. Lieutenant Taho Kim, who had been brought into the meeting as the Horizon's navigation officer, raised his hand hesitantly. During our escape from Europa, they seemed confused when we jumped to FTL inside Jupiter's gravity well. Their tactics were perfect until we did something unpredictable. Ju nodded. That's consistent with what we're learning about them. They're methodical, precise, and overwhelming, but not adaptable. General Kang stood and approached the holographic display. Then we need to be unpredictable. Hit them in ways they won't expect. He turned to the assembled leaders. I propose Operation Thunderstorm. We evacuate population centers, move our people underground. We make Earth look defeated before the real battle begins. President Sunwoo looked troubled. You want to give up our cities without a fight? No, Madam President. I want to turn our cities into traps, General Kang replied. We let them land, thinking we're broken. Then we hit them from below. Dr. Lee cleared his throat. There's something else you should know. He pulled up new data on the display. Our analysis of their communication patterns suggests they operate with a hive mind structure. Individual Krelaks have limited autonomy. They depend on constant communication with their command ships. This caught everyone's attention. Ju leaned forward. If we could disrupt that communication. Exactly, Dr. Lee said. We've been working on a targeted electromagnetic pulse weapon that might temporarily sever their connection. It wouldn't kill them, but it could disorient them. For the first time in days, a glimmer of hope appeared in the room. General Kang began outlining tactical applications while President Sunwoo conferred with her advisors. Jiwoo walked over to the side of the room, where a separate display showed the global situation. Massive evacuation efforts were underway in every major city. Millions of people streaming into underground shelters and rural areas. The casualty estimates for the coming attack were staggering even in the best-case scenario. Dr. Lee joined her by the display. "You don't look convinced," he said quietly. "I watched Europa Station die," she replied. 4,000 people gone in minutes. Mars colony was 2 million. Earth has 11 billion. "We know more now," Dr. Lee said. "We have advantages they don't expect." Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent alert. The room's main display changed to show a live feed from lunar orbit. The first wave of the Krelax fleet had arrived early, their dark ships emerging from FTL travel in perfect formation. "They're targeting Luna Base first," announced the Orbital Defense Coordinator. Exactly the same pattern as the outer colonies. Everyone watched in grim silence as the alien ships began their methodical destruction of humanity's lunar outpost. The defense batteries on the moon fired back, but their weapons barely damaged the Krelax ships. "Luna Base has 4,000 personnel," someone whispered. "The same number as Europa," Jiwoo thought, feeling sick. General Kang turned to the room. "We have less time than we thought. Implementation of Operation Thunderstorm begins immediately. All military assets to fallback positions. Civilian evacuation is now mandatory." As the leaders dispersed to their various commands, Dr. Lee pulled Jiwoo aside. "I need your help with something," he said urgently. "The tissue samples we recovered. I think there's more we can do with them. Something the Krelax won't expect." "What do you need?" Jiwoo asked. "Access to the biological weapons research facility in Daejeon." Jiwoo stared at him. Those facilities were shuttered after the pandemic accords. "Officially, yes," Dr. Lee said quietly. "But they still exist. And right now, we need every option on the table." Before Jiwoo could respond, another alert sounded. The tactical display updated to show new Krelax ships appearing, not near the moon, but in Earth's orbit directly. "They're splitting their forces," General Kang announced. "Multiple entry vectors detected. They're going to hit several continents simultaneously." President Sunwoo stood at the center of the chaos, her face resolute. "This is no longer about winning," she said. "This is about survival. Implement the Phoenix Protocol." A hushed murmur ran through the room. The Phoenix Protocol was a last resort measure, involving the activation of experimental air defense systems that had been deemed too unpredictable for regular use. "Madam President," the science minister protested, "those systems haven't been fully tested. The ethical constraints are a luxury we can no longer afford." President Sunwoo finished firmly. "General Kang, you have full authority. Dr. Lee, Captain Park, whatever you're planning, you have my authorization. Humanity ends today unless we try everything." As the room erupted into urgent activity, Jiwoo looked back at the display showing the Krelax ships entering Earth's atmosphere. She thought of Europa Station, of Mars colony, of all the millions already lost. "They struck first," she said quietly to Dr. Lee. "But they have no idea what they've awakened." The sky above Seoul burned red with atmospheric entry trails as Krelax dropships descended. From her position at the forward command post on Namsan Mountain, Captain Jiwoo Park tracked their approach through high-powered binoculars. The alien vessels cut through the clouds like dark knives, their hulls absorbing the sunlight rather than reflecting it. 15 dropships on approach vector, she reported into her tactical comm. "Estimated landing zones match our predictions. Gangnam District, Yongsan, and the government complex." Behind her, the remnants of South Korea's 7th Infantry Division prepared their experimental weapons. The soldiers moved with quiet efficiency, their faces set with grim determination. These men and women had already witnessed the destruction of Busan and Incheon. Seoul would not fall so easily. "Captain Park," came President Subin Choi's voice through the secure channel. "The Krelax have begun simultaneous landing operations in 26 major cities worldwide. New York, Moscow, Beijing, London, all reporting the same attack pattern. Jiwu watched as the first dropship stabilized above the Gangnam skyline. A bright blue beam shot downward, vaporizing a section of skyscrapers to clear a landing zone. What about the counterattack in orbit? She asked. Failed, President Choi replied, her voice tight but controlled. Our remaining orbital platforms have been neutralized. The lunar defense grid is offline. We're on our own. On the mountain ridge, Lieutenant Taho Kim approached, carrying a secure tablet. Captain, Defense Command reports the Krelax ground forces are deploying in standard formation. Just like Mars Colony and the other outposts, they're not adapting to our preparations. Jiwu nodded. This confirmed Dr. Lee's theory about Krelax behavior patterns. They were technologically superior but inflexible, following the same successful strategy that had worked on humanity's unprepared colonies. And Dr. Lee's special project? She asked. Still untested, Taho replied. He says he needs more time. Jiwu watched as the first wave of Krelax ground troops emerged from their landed ships. The aliens moved with mechanical precision, their armored forms standing nearly 3 meters tall. Their weapons began systematically destroying infrastructure, power stations, communication towers, transportation hubs, exactly as they had done on Mars and Europa. We don't have more time, she said, making a decision. Contact President Choi. Tell her we're initiating Operation Thunderstorm in Seoul. Taho's eyes widened. But Dr. Lee's countermeasure isn't ready, and the evacuation of the southern districts is only at 70%. The Krelax won't wait for us to be ready, Lieutenant. Jiwu checked her own weapon, a prototype pulse rifle designed to penetrate Krelax armor. Transmit the order. In the underground presidential bunker beneath the Blue House, President Subin Choi received the message from Captain Park's unit. Around her, government officials and military commanders monitored the worsening situation across the globe. The large display screen showed Krelax ships landing on every continent. Defense Minister Han looked up from his station. Madam President, Captain Park is right. If we wait any longer, we'll lose our opportunity. The Krelax are following their standard protocol. They don't expect a coordinated counterattack. President Choi studied the tactical display. Humanity had already lost over 30 million people in the initial attacks on the colonies and orbital stations. Earth's conventional military forces were proving ineffective against the alien technology. Their only advantage was the element of surprise, the unconventional tactics they had prepared based on Captain Park and Dr. Lee's analysis of Krelax behavior. She made her decision. Activate Protocol Chimera, ordered President Choi, her face grim in the bunker's harsh light. The defense minister entered his authorization code, followed by the science minister and finally President Choi herself. A new system came online, its interface different from the standard military networks. Across the globe, dormant military AI systems awakened, systems deemed too dangerous in peacetime. These were not the limited, carefully controlled AIs used in everyday life. These were fully autonomous combat systems designed to think creatively, adapt instantly, and fight without the ethical constraints that limited human soldiers. In Seoul, Captain Park's tactical display suddenly illuminated with new information as the Chimera system linked with her unit. All units prepare for synchronized attack, she ordered. Remember your training. The Krelax expect us to defend conventionally. They don't expect us to have studied their patterns. On her signal, the hidden defensive positions around Seoul activated simultaneously. Not the obvious military installations, which the Krelax had already targeted, but concealed weapon systems embedded in civilian infrastructure, office buildings, subway stations, even hidden beneath public parks. The Krelax ground forces, moving in their predictable pattern, suddenly found themselves under attack from unexpected directions. Their formation, perfect for countering conventional military responses, left them vulnerable to the asymmetric tactics designed by the Chimera Eye. Similar scenarios played out in cities worldwide as humanity executed its desperate strategy. Rather than futilely defending against superior technology, Earth's forces struck at the specific vulnerabilities identified by Dr. Lee's research, targeting the Krelax communication nodes, using electromagnetic pulses to disrupt their hive mind coordination. In the chaos of the counterattack, Captain Park led a specialized team toward a specific objective. One of the Krelax dropships had been damaged by the hidden defense systems and made an emergency landing near the Han River. "This is our opportunity," she told her team as they approached the crashed alien vessel. "Dr. Lee needs intact technology and biological samples. This may be our only chance." The entry point was a rupture in the hull, still glowing hot from whatever had damaged it. The team's cooling foam created a passable entrance, and Captain Park led them inside. "Atmosphere readings normal," reported Sergeant Junot, the team's technical specialist. "But the interior temperature is nearly 40 degrees Celsius." "They like it hot," Captain Park reminded them. "Remember your training. Stay together, secure the objective, and get out. We have 15 minutes before their retrieval protocols bring reinforcements." The interior of the Krelax ship was unlike anything human engineers would have designed. The corridors curved in strange angles, and the surfaces seemed to pulse with an internal energy. 3 Krelax crew members lay dead near the control room, their silicon-based biology already crystallizing as their internal systems shut down. "Find anything we can use," she ordered, as the team spread out to secure samples and technology. Sergeant Junot worked quickly to extract the ship's navigation system, while medics carefully collected biological samples. Captain Park herself downloaded data from what appeared to be the main computer core, using interface technology developed from the Horizon's sensor readings. "Captain, you need to see this," called Lieutenant Sora from what seemed to be the ship's bridge. She was pointing to a display showing Earth from orbit, with multiple Krelax ships highlighted. Jiwoo studied the alien symbols, recognizing patterns from her time analyzing their communications. "They're confused," she realized. "The Chimera Eye is forcing them to adapt to unexpected tactics, and they don't know how to respond." A sudden vibration ran through the ship. "Retrieval protocol initiated," warned Sergeant Junot. "We need to move now." The team gathered their precious cargo and retreated from the vessel just as more Krelax ships appeared overhead. As they reached the extraction point, Captain Park looked back to see the damaged ship being lifted away by some kind of energy beam. "Did we get everything Dr. Lee needed?" she asked Lieutenant Sora. "Everything and more," Sora confirmed, securing the sample container. "If the patterns in their navigation system are what I think they are, we may have just found the location of their homeworld." 6 hours later, as Earth burned, the Krelax fleet unexpectedly withdrew. In command centers around the world, military leaders watched in disbelief as the alien ships broke orbit and disappeared into FTL jumps. In the presidential bunker, Captain Park delivered the samples and data to Dr. Lee, who immediately began analysis with his team. "Why did they leave?" President Choi asked the assembled leaders. "We hurt them, but we didn't defeat them." Dr. Lee looked up from his preliminary analysis. "The Chimera Eye forced them to confront something they've never experienced before. An inferior technological civilization that could adapt faster than they could. Their strategic programming couldn't handle the contradiction. So they retreated to regroup," General Kang concluded. "They'll be back, with new tactics." "Yes," Dr. Lee agreed. "But now we have this." He held up a data crystal containing the information from the Krelax ship, their homeworld coordinates, their biological weaknesses, and time to prepare. Captain Park looked at the tactical display, showing the departing Krelax fleet. "How much time?" Based on their FTL capabilities and the distance to their core systems, Dr. Lee calculated perhaps 5 years before they can mount another full-scale invasion. President Choi stood, surveying the room of exhausted but determined leaders. "Then we have 5 years to make sure humanity is ready when they return. 5 years to build a force that will make them regret ever striking first." Outside, the sky above Seoul was finally clear of alien ships, though smoke still rose from the damaged districts. Earth had suffered terrible losses, but humanity had survived its first encounter with the Krelax, and now they had a fighting chance. 5 years passed. Humanity rebuilt. The scars of the Krelax attack remained visible across Earth's surface, the glass plains where cities once stood, the crater lakes formed by orbital bombardment. But around these wounds, new structures rose. Not the gleaming skyscrapers and sprawling suburbs of the pre-war era, but hardened facilities, manufacturing complexes, and defense installations. Admiral Ju Park stood at the viewport of Orbital Command Station Sentinel, watching as another new warship emerged from the construction yards in lunar orbit. Unlike the utilitarian vessels of Earth's pre-war fleet, this ship was asymmetrical, with strange geometries that somehow unsettled the human eye. "Beautiful, isn't she?" said Taho Kim, now a commander and Park's executive officer. "Chimera-class destroyer, the 40th to launch this month." Admiral Park nodded. "I still can't quite believe we built them so quickly." "The AIs designed them. We just put them together," Taho replied. "Speaking of which, your shuttle leaves in 20 minutes. Dr. Lee is expecting you at Daejeon." The shuttle descent to Earth gave Admiral Park a clear view of the transformed Korean peninsula. Seoul had been largely rebuilt, but not as the sprawling metropolis it once was. Now it was a hardened city fortress, its new architecture designed with defense in mind. Between the major population centers, vast manufacturing complexes spread across the landscape, many extending deep underground. Humanity had learned from the first attack. Nothing essential remained on the surface anymore. The shuttle landed at a nondescript entrance in a mountainside. Security protocols were elaborate. Biometric scans, monitored behavior analysis, quantum encryption keys that changed hourly. Even as Admiral of the fleet, Park submitted to each layer of security without complaint. The fate of their species depended on what happened in this facility. Dr. Minho Lee met her at the final checkpoint, his formerly youthful face now lined with exhaustion and purpose. The brilliant scientist had aged more than 5 years since the attack. "Admiral, thank you for coming in person," he said, leading her into a transparent elevator that began descending into the Earth. "I wanted you to see the final phase before we begin deployment." As they descended, the true scale of the Daejeon complex became apparent. Vast chambers had been carved from the bedrock, housing research facilities, production lines, and testing areas. Thousands of scientists and engineers moved purposefully through the complex. "How deep are we going?" Park asked as the elevator continued its descent. 3 kilometers, Dr. Lee replied. "The main research facility needed to be isolated. Some of what we've developed here is unconventional." The elevator finally stopped at a heavily secured level. Through reinforced observation windows, Park could see laboratories where scientists in sealed containment suits worked with strange crystalline materials. "Is that Krelax tissue?" "Yes," Dr. Lee confirmed. "From the samples your team recovered from the downed ship, we've learned so much about their biology. Silicon-based, as we suspected, but with a unified cellular structure unlike anything on Earth. Their neural networks are distributed throughout their bodies, not centralized in a brain as ours are." "And the countermeasure?" Park asked. Dr. Lee led her to a special containment chamber where a small vial of iridescent liquid floated in a magnetic field. "We call it Project Callisto," he said, his voice dropping lower despite the secure location. "A tailored biodigital hybrid, part virus, part nanite swarm. It targets the specific crystalline structures that form Krelax neural pathways. A biological weapon," Park stated flatly. "A survival measure," Dr. Lee corrected. "It won't kill them. We're not genocidal. But it will disrupt their hive mind communication permanently. Each affected Krelax will become an individual rather than part of their collective consciousness." Park studied the vial thoughtfully. "You're giving them individuality." "In a manner of speaking, yes. Whether they'll see it that way is another matter. The Krelax have evolved as a collective consciousness for millions of years. Individuality might be terrifying to them." They continued their tour through the facility, passing through sections dedicated to weapons development, propulsion systems, and shield technology. "Everything is based on reversed engineered Krelax technology?" Park asked. "Originally, yes. But the Chimera AIs have taken those foundations and evolved them in directions the Krelax would never consider. Their thinking is too linear, too methodical. Our AIs create asymmetric solutions, approaches no silicon-based hive mind would conceive." They entered a vast war room where dozens of officers monitored holographic displays showing fleet positions throughout the solar system. Engineer Junho Bot approached them, offering a salute to Admiral Park. The ships are ready, Engineer Bay reported. The AI has evolved. The weapons systems are unlike anything we've designed before. He gestured to a technical readout of the flagship, the Hfy Horizon, named after Park's original research vessel. Its weapons systems defied conventional military classifications. They weren't simply more powerful versions of pre-war technology. They operated on principles that would have been theoretical 5 years ago. And we've located their homeworld, Intelligence Officer Yona Shin added, approaching with a data tablet. She displayed the coordinates extracted from the captured Krelax vessel, along with sensor readings of a distant star system. Our long-range probes confirmed it last week. The Krelax civilization extends across 12 planets in the Sigma Draconis system. Admiral Park studied the intelligence and their military capacity. Substantial, but not infinite, Officer Shin replied. Our analysis suggests they've never faced a serious threat before. Their home system defenses are formidable but predictable, designed to repel conventional attacks. Which we won't be using, Dr. Lee added. Admiral Park nodded slowly, absorbing the information. After 5 years of preparation, the moment of decision had arrived. Earth had transformed itself into a war machine unlike anything in human history. The Chimera AIs had accelerated technological development by centuries. The new fleet was ready. The biological countermeasure was complete. What about the ethical constraints on the AIs? She asked Dr. Lee quietly. The Phoenix Protocol was always meant to be temporary. Dr. Lee looked uncomfortable. The AIs continue to evolve beyond our original parameters. They understand our objective, survival against the Krelax threat, and they optimize for that goal. We can guide them, but controlling them becomes more theoretical with each passing month. That's not reassuring, Doctor. No, it isn't, he agreed. But without them, we'd already be extinct. The President and the Defense Council have decided it's an acceptable risk. Later that day, Admiral Park stood before the Global Defense Council in their underground chamber beneath the new United Earth Government headquarters. Representatives from every surviving nation listened as she presented the final operational plan. Operation Nemesis is ready for execution, she concluded. 217 warships, carrying 40,000 personnel, and the Callisto countermeasure. We will use the Krelax's own FTL pathways against them, appearing directly in their home system before they can mount a defense. President Choi, re-elected to lead humanity through the crisis, looked around the chamber. The stakes could not be higher. If we wait, the Krelax will eventually return with greater numbers. If we strike now, we risk everything on one operation. Defense Minister Kwan, who had replaced the previous minister killed in the attacks, spoke next. Admiral Park's fleet represents nearly 70% of our military capacity. If Operation Nemesis fails, Earth will be vulnerable. A heavy silence fell over the chamber as the representatives considered the implications. 5 years ago, Admiral Park said into the silence, the Krelax struck without warning, without communication, without mercy. They saw our potential and feared it. Now, that fear has become justified. She gestured to the holographic display showing Earth's transformed military capacity. We have become what they feared, a species that could adapt and evolve faster than they could imagine. The question now is, do we use that capacity? President Choi stood. I call for a vote. All in favor of authorizing Operation Nemesis. One by one, the representatives voted. Despite the risk, the decision was unanimous. Earth had spent 5 years preparing for this moment. There would be no second chance. Operation Nemesis is authorized, President Choi announced. Admiral Park, you have humanity's unified blessing. When can your fleet depart? The fleet is already assembled at the Jupiter gravity point, Park replied. Final preparations will be complete in 72 hours. 3 days later, Admiral Park stood on the bridge of the Hfy Horizon, watching as the largest fleet in human history formed up around Jupiter. The massive gas giant would provide the gravitational slingshot needed to accelerate their FTL jump to the Krelax home system. All ships report ready, Admiral, Commander Kim reported. Admiral Park thought about the 5 years since the attack. The millions dead. The civilization transformed. The ethical compromises made in the name of survival. There would be a reckoning for all of it someday. But first, humanity needed to secure its future. Commence Operation Nemesis, she ordered. Let's remind the Krelax why they should have finished the job when they had the chance. As one, the fleet of asymmetrical, A-designed warships activated their FTL drives. The stars stretched into lines, and humanity launched its counterstrike against the aliens who had nearly destroyed them. The Krelax had struck first, but humanity's retaliation was about to arrive at their doorstep. The human fleet emerged from FTL at the edge of Krelax space, a swarm of dark, asymmetrical vessels appearing where no enemy had ever dared to venture. 217 warships, designed by humanity's evolved AI systems, arranged themselves in a formation no Krelax tactical computer could recognize. On the bridge of the flagship Hfy Horizon, Admiral Hfy Park stood calmly as her officers reported their status. All ships present and accounted for, Admiral. Commander Taho Kim announced. No damage from the extended FTL jump. Krelax defense grid is activating. Lieutenant Yana Shin reported from the tactical station. Their response seems confused. They're following standard perimeter defense protocols, but they're slow to identify us as a threat. Admiral Park studied the main view screen showing the Krelax home system. Unlike Earth's solar system with its single habitable planet, the Krelax had spread across multiple worlds orbiting Sigma Draconis. Massive structures connected the planets, space elevators, orbital habitats, and defense platforms that had likely stood unchallenged for thousands of years. They never expected us to strike back, Admiral Park said, watching the Krelax homeworld come into view. Not here. Not in their sanctuary. Dr. Minho Lee stood beside her, his attention focused on a specialized console showing biological readings. The atmospheric composition matches our predictions. The Callisto deployment systems are ready. Admiral Park nodded and opened a fleet-wide channel. All ships, this is Admiral Park. Commence Operation Nemesis, Phase 1. Chimera protocols active. Across the fleet, the advanced AI systems took partial control of weapons systems and tactical operations. The human crews worked alongside the artificial intelligence, each complementing the other's strengths. It was a partnership unlike anything humanity had developed before the Krelax attack, and precisely what made them so unpredictable to their silicon-based enemy. The Krelax defense grid activated, firing energy weapons at the human fleet. But the shots were predictable, aimed where conventional ships would be. The human vessels, guided by the Chimera Eye, moved in patterns no Krelax tactical computer could anticipate, evading most of the defensive fire. Return fire, Admiral Park ordered. Target their command and control nodes first. The human fleet's weapons activated. Unlike the conventional lasers and missiles of pre-war Earth vessels, these weapons operated on principles reverse-engineered from Krelax technology, but evolved in new directions by the Chimera Eye. Phase-shifted energy beams that existed in multiple states simultaneously passed through the alien shields as if they weren't there. Quantum-entangled warheads detonated inside protected installations without physically crossing the barriers. The alien defense grid barely had time to register the threat before the eye-guided weapons tore through their supposedly impenetrable shields. First wave of defensive platforms neutralized, reported Lieutenant Shin, barely concealing her surprise at how effective their weapons were. Krelax fleet is mobilizing, but they're following predictable response patterns. On the tactical display, Admiral Park could see the Krelax ships forming up in the same methodical, precise formations they had used to attack Earth, effective against conventional opponents, but fatally predictable against the Chimera-enhanced human fleet. They're not adapting, Dr. Lee observed, just as we theorized. Their hive mind processes information thoroughly but slowly. They can't comprehend our tactics quickly enough to counter them. Deploy the Callisto carriers, Admiral Park ordered. Begin Phase 2. Smaller vessels separated from the main fleet, accelerating toward the innermost planets of the Krelax system. These ships carried no conventional weapons, only delivery systems for Dr. Lee's biological countermeasure. The Krelax fleet finally engaged, their powerful weapons flashing across space. Several human ships took hits, their advanced shields straining against the assault. Horizon to all ships. Implement adaptive defense pattern Omega. Admiral Park commanded. Focus fire on their flagship clusters. The battle raged for hours, but the outcome was becoming clear. The human fleet, despite being technologically inferior in many ways, was overwhelming the Krelak's defenses through sheer unpredictability. The Chimera I constantly adjusted tactics, never repeating the same approach twice, while the Krelaks remained locked in their methodical response patterns. Admiral, Dr. Lee called out, the Callisto carriers report successful deployment. The countermeasure is entering the atmospheric processors of the three main Krelaks worlds. Admiral Park nodded grimly. This was the most controversial aspect of Operation Nemesis, the release of an engineered pathogen that would permanently alter Krelak's neurobiology. Not killing them, but forever changing them. How long until we see effects? She asked. Hours, perhaps a day, Dr. Lee replied. It depends on how quickly their atmospheric systems distribute the compound. The battle continued, with the human fleet pressing its advantage. The Krelak's resistance was fierce, but increasingly disorganized as the Chimera I targeted their command ships. 18 hours later, as the human fleet held position around the main Krelak's homeworld, the first reports came in. Admiral, Lieutenant Shin said, her voice filled with disbelief. We're receiving communication attempts from the surface, in multiple formats, including some compatible with our systems. Admiral Park exchanged a significant look with Dr. Lee. The Callisto effect. He nodded. It's working. Their hive mind is fragmenting into individual consciousness. For the first time in perhaps millions of years, the Krelaks are experiencing existence as separate beings. Put it on screen, Admiral Park ordered. The main view screen flickered, then displayed the image of a Krelax. Its crystalline, silicon-based body reflected light in strange patterns, and its multiple sensory appendages twitched in what humans would later learn was extreme distress. I speak, the translation system rendered haltingly. What happening to us? Admiral Park stepped forward. I am Admiral Ju Park of Earth. 5 years ago, your civilization attacked ours without warning or communication. We have come to ensure you never threaten us again. The Krelaks trembled. We were, one mind, now many minds, many thoughts, many fears. Please, stop this pain. Dr. Lee whispered to Admiral Park. They've never experienced individual consciousness. It's overwhelming them. Admiral Park addressed the Krelaks again. The change is permanent, but the disorientation is temporary. You attacked us because you feared our potential to evolve beyond your understanding. Now you will evolve as well. As individuals, not as a collective. Over the following days, similar scenes played out across the Krelaks worlds. Their once unified civilization fractured into billions of individual consciousnesses, each experiencing fear, confusion, and eventually, the first glimmers of individual thought. Within weeks, the once mighty Krelak civilization surrendered unconditionally. Not to save their lives. The Callisto countermeasure had already ensured their biological survival, but to end the psychological trauma of their forced evolution. Admiral Park led the negotiation team personally, working with the emerging Krelak leaders, individuals who showed the greatest adaptation to their new state of being. The terms were firm but not vengeful: complete demilitarization, open communication, and cultural exchange under human supervision. You could have destroyed us, one Krelak's representative said during the negotiations. Why didn't you? Because then we would have become what you feared, Admiral Park replied. A species that eliminates threats without understanding them. 10 years later, Admiral Park stood on the observation deck of the rebuilt Europa station, watching Jupiter rise over the horizon. Beside her stood Dr. Lee, both of them now retired from active service. The station, once destroyed in the Krelak's first attack, now served as a diplomatic hub where humans and Krelak's representatives worked together. I received the latest reports from Sigma Draconis, Dr. Lee said, breaking the comfortable silence. The Krelak's social evolution continues to accelerate. They've developed art, music, philosophy, concepts that had no meaning in their hive mind state. Admiral Park nodded. And their technology, diversifying rapidly. Individual innovation has led to breakthroughs their collective mind never considered, but all non-military, as agreed. They watched as a transport ship approached the station, carrying a delegation of Krelax diplomats for the anniversary summit marking 10 years since the end of the war. We became what they feared, Lee said quietly, thinking of how humanity had transformed itself to survive. The weaponized eye, the biological warfare, the single-minded focus on retaliation. No, Park replied with gentle certainty. We became something better. We offered peace when we could have offered extinction. That's the difference. She thought back to that moment in the Krelax throne room, when she had stood before their leaders with the power to end their civilization entirely. The Chimera Eye had calculated that complete elimination of the Krelax was the most efficient way to ensure human safety. President Joy and the Defense Council had authorized whatever measures were deemed necessary. But in that moment, Admiral Park had made a different choice, one that honored the best of humanity, not its darkest impulses. Now, 10 years later, both species were evolving together. The Krelax were learning individuality and creativity, while humans were gradually reclaiming the ethical boundaries loosened during wartime. The Chimera Eye had been partially decommissioned, its most extreme aspects contained. The next diplomatic transport arrives tomorrow, Admiral Park noted. The Krelax are bringing their first works of art created by their children, the first generation born as individuals. Dr. Lee smiled. I never expected to live to see this. When we deployed Callisto, I wasn't certain if we were committing an atrocity or granting a gift. Perhaps it was both. Admiral Park said thoughtfully. They struck first because they couldn't imagine another way. We retaliated by forcing them to imagine, to think as individuals. As Jupiter completed its rise over Europa's horizon, the station hummed with activity, humans and Krelax working together, two species that had nearly destroyed each other now building something new. They had survived, not by becoming the monsters they fought, but by remembering what made humanity worth saving in the first place.